before families began that Monday believing their loved ones would survive. By sunset they were planning funerals instead. The heartbreaking part wasn't that doctors ran out of options or that an ambulance arrived too late. It was that the supplies capable of keeping those patients alive spent more than an hour sitting on the shoulder of an ordinary suburban road while two police officers refused to make a verification call that would have taken only minutes. The woman behind the wheel warned them repeatedly. She handed over every credential they requested, pointed them to emergency contact numbers, and pleaded for them to confirm the shipment before more time slipped away. They never did. When the truth was finally verified, the convoy was cleared immediately, but by then the race against time had already been lost, leaving a question that no investigation could ever fully answer. Before we continue, make sure you stay until the end because every story has a moment where everything changes. If you enjoy powerful stories filled with unexpected twists, emotional lessons, and hidden truths, subscribe and join us for more. Now, let's go back to the beginning and uncover what really happened. For nearly 15 years, Naomi Brooks had lived by a simple belief. If she did her job well, no one would ever know her name. She wasn't a surgeon standing beneath operating room lights or a paramedic racing through city streets with sirens blaring. Her work happened quietly, somewhere between warehouses, blood banks, transplant centers, and hospitals where every delivery represented another chance for someone to keep breathing. Inside the medical community, however, Naomi was far from invisible. Emergency room coordinators recognized her before she stepped through the loading dock doors. Pharmacy directors trusted her without hesitation. Trauma teams often checked their watches against the estimated arrival time of her van because they understood exactly what she was carrying. Locked inside specially designed temperature-controlled containers were rare blood units that couldn't be replaced overnight, anti-rejection medications already assigned to transplant recipients, clotting agents for patients suffering catastrophic injuries, and specialized ventilator components that intensive care units couldn't simply borrow from another hospital. To most people, the cargo looked like a collection of sealed boxes. To Naomi, every container represented someone's mother, father, child, spouse, or friend waiting for medicine they would never personally see. That Monday started with a phone call unlike any she had received in years. A devastating multi-vehicle collision on the interstate had flooded regional trauma centers with critically injured patients while several scheduled transplant surgeries had simultaneously depleted emergency inventories across 4 hospitals. The situation was becoming increasingly fragile with every passing minute. At the distribution center, technicians loaded the final containers into her van before activating live GPS tracking for the entire route. The logistics supervisor looked directly at Naomi before handing over the transport packet. "Every hospital is expecting you. They're monitoring your location in real time. If anything delays this shipment, call us immediately. There isn't much room for error today." Naomi secured the last document, checked the cargo temperatures one final time, and merged onto the highway. She expected the biggest challenge ahead to be traffic. She never imagined the greatest delay would come from the very people sworn to protect the public. The morning had been moving exactly as planned until flashing red and blue lights filled Naomi Brooks' rearview mirror. She instinctively checked her speed. 5 miles under the limit. She glanced at the dashboard. Every refrigeration system was functioning normally, the GPS tracker remained active, and the cargo temperatures hadn't shifted by a single degree. Nothing seemed out of place. Signaling calmly, she guided the emergency transport van onto the shoulder. Before the engine had fully settled into idle, 2 female officers stepped out of their patrol car. Officer Rebecca Collins approached the driver's window with measured confidence, while Officer Amanda Pierce walked slowly around the van, studying every decal, every serial number, and every emergency marking as though searching for something that didn't belong. "License, registration, and proof you're authorized to operate this vehicle," Collins said without greeting. Naomi immediately complied, handing over her commercial driver's license along with a neatly organized transport binder. Inside were her emergency courier credentials, dispatch authorization, hospital contracts, cargo manifests, refrigeration logs, temperature records, and a page listing emergency verification numbers for both the non-profit operations center and every receiving hospital. Collins flipped through only the first few pages before closing the binder. "You've got a lot of paperwork." "I transport emergency medical supplies," Naomi replied evenly. "Documentation is part of the job." Pierce stopped beside the driver's door and looked from Naomi to the hospital logos printed across the van. "I'll be honest," she said. "You don't exactly look like the person we'd expect driving something like this." The words lingered in the air. Naomi had encountered skepticism before, but never when time mattered this much. She kept her voice steady. "If there's any concern, please call the operations center. The verification numbers are highlighted in red. They'll confirm everything in less than a minute." Collins didn't reach for the phone. Instead, she looked directly at Naomi. "People usually start asking us to make phone calls when they don't want us looking too closely." Then she stepped back from the window. "Turn the engine off and step out of the vehicle." Naomi closed the driver's door behind her, careful not to let frustration show. She knew from years of working around emergency scenes that remaining calm often prevented situations from getting worse. Unfortunately, calm wasn't changing anything. Officer Pierce unlocked the rear cargo compartment and pulled one of the insulated containers toward the edge of the van. Large red lettering covered its lid. "For emergency hospital use, contact operations before opening." Naomi pointed toward the warning label. "Those containers are sealed for a reason," she said. "Please call the number before opening anything. The operations center has to document every inspection." Neither officer acknowledged her. Collins began photographing each container from multiple angles while Pierce copied serial numbers into a notebook as if conducting a criminal investigation instead of a routine traffic stop. Minutes slipped away. Then more patrol vehicles arrived. One officer inspected the refrigeration unit. Another questioned Naomi about her route. A third walked slowly around the van, shining a flashlight through the windows despite the bright morning sun. Every new arrival asked questions. Not one of them made the verification call. Traffic gradually backed up behind the growing line of police cruisers. Drivers slowed to stare. Several people pulled out their phones and began recording. Across the street, two nurses leaving a nearby outpatient clinic recognized the transport company's logo. One cautiously approached the officers. "Excuse me," she said. "That company delivers to our hospital almost every week. If that's one of their drivers, she's legitimate." Collins thanked her briefly but dismissed the comment without asking another question. Naomi looked down at her watch. More than an hour remained when the stop began. Now the margin for error was disappearing. She imagined surgeons checking operating room clocks, pharmacists refreshing inventory screens, and transplant coordinators wondering why the GPS signal had stopped moving. She tried one last time. "I understand you're doing your job," she said quietly. "But every emergency contact you need has been in that binder from the beginning. Please, call them before any more time is lost." Pierce folded her arms. "Everyone claims their situation is urgent." Naomi lowered her eyes for a moment, taking a slow breath. "They're not waiting on paperwork," she said softly. "They're waiting on me." 75 exhausting minutes after the stop began, a supervising officer finally looked up from the transport binder. "You've got one phone call." For the first time since the flashing lights appeared, Naomi felt a small spark of hope. Naomi's hands were steady as she accepted the phone, but inside, every second felt unbearably heavy. She dialed the emergency operations number from memory before the supervising officer could change his mind. The line connected almost immediately. "Operations Center, this is Marcus." "It's Naomi," she said, struggling to keep her voice composed. "I've been stopped by police. They've had the shipment on the roadside for over an hour. They verified nothing." There was a pause. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice sharper than before. "Stay where you are. Don't argue with anyone. We're taking over. The call ended. Less than 2 minutes later, phones across multiple agencies began ringing at once. The nonprofit's Emergency Operations Center contacted the State Emergency Medical Coordination Office. Hospital administrators at all 4 receiving facilities confirmed they were still waiting on Naomi's shipment. Police command was notified that an active emergency medical transport had been detained despite carrying fully documented credentials. Everything Naomi had tried to explain on the roadside was confirmed almost instantly. The shipment was legitimate. The route had been pre-approved. The cargo was urgently needed. Every document she had offered at the very beginning had been authentic. Officer Collins' radio suddenly crackled to life. Unit 21, release the transport vehicle immediately. The command was followed by only a brief pause. Repeat. Release that vehicle now and provide emergency escort to every hospital on its route. Silence settled over the roadside. Collins slowly lowered the radio from her shoulder. Pierce stared at the transport binder that had remained unopened for most of the stop, her expression draining of confidence as the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Within moments, patrol cars repositioned themselves to clear traffic. The convoy accelerated toward the first hospital with lights and sirens cutting through the morning congestion. Naomi wanted to believe they could still make up the lost time. That hope disappeared the moment she arrived. Doctors met the convoy outside the trauma entrance, not with relief, but with the exhausted expressions of people who had already been forced to make decisions no physician should ever have to make. 4 patients had died before the supplies reached them. The words settled over Naomi with a weight she couldn't describe. She remained standing beside the van long after the medical team had rushed the supplies inside. The cool morning air suddenly felt impossibly still. Around her, nurses hurried through automatic doors, paramedics unloaded fresh arrivals, and emergency staff continued fighting for every patient they could still save. But 4 battles had already been lost. A trauma surgeon stepped outside, removing his surgical cap with slow, tired hands. "We stretched every resource we had," he said quietly. "We substituted medications where we could. We delayed procedures that couldn't safely wait any longer. Everyone inside did everything possible." Naomi nodded, but the reassurance couldn't reach her. She had done everything possible too. Yet the outcome remained the same. News of the delayed shipment spread quickly. When internal investigators reviewed the body camera footage, the recordings revealed something impossible to dismiss. Naomi had remained calm from beginning to end. She had never refused instructions. She had never raised her voice. Again and again she directed the officers to the highlighted emergency verification numbers printed on nearly every document they held. Those calls could have resolved the stop within minutes. Instead, they were never made. The investigation uncovered another disturbing detail. Messages exchanged between officers Rebecca Collins and Amanda Pierce shortly after initiating the stop showed that suspicion had taken root before either officer examined Naomi's paperwork. Investigators concluded they had allowed personal assumptions to outweigh established procedures, causing them to ignore repeated opportunities to verify the shipment through official channels. The department later announced both officers had been suspended without pay, terminated following disciplinary hearings, and referred for criminal investigation involving allegations of misconduct in public office, negligence, and obstruction of emergency medical services. Months later, at a memorial honoring the 4 victims, Naomi stood before grieving families who had every reason to question a system that had failed them. She took a slow breath before speaking. "I never asked anyone to believe my words," she said quietly. "I asked them to verify the evidence that was already in their hands." She looked toward the photographs displayed across the stage. Those 4 lives deserved at least that. The room remained silent, not because there was nothing left to say, but because no words could restore what unnecessary delay had taken away. Life eventually returned to its routine, but for Naomi Brooks, routine no longer felt the same. Every time she started the engine of her emergency transport van, she found herself glancing at the clock a little longer and checking her route a little more carefully. She continued making deliveries because she believed the patients waiting inside those hospitals deserved someone who refused to let fear win. In the months that followed, the city introduced mandatory emergency medical verification procedures, revised officer training, and policies requiring immediate confirmation of time-sensitive medical shipments before any prolonged detention. Those changes couldn't return the 4 lives that had been lost, but they ensured their deaths would become the reason future emergency deliveries received the urgency they always should have. Stories like this remind us that assumptions should never replace facts, especially when lives may depend on the difference. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you believe this tragedy could have been prevented if a simple verification call had been made at the very beginning? Share your perspective respectfully in the comments. If you enjoy powerful stories that explore justice, accountability, and the real consequences of human decisions, subscribe and join us for more narratives that challenge us to think beyond first impressions.